In these examples, we're going to rationalize the denominator. Rationalizing the denominator basically means taking the radical or the root and rewriting the denominator so it doesn't have that radical or root there anymore. So let's start off with 1 over the square root of 5. How do we rationalize the denominator? Well, basically, if you multiply the square root of 5 by itself, what will happen, and we're going to do this to both numerator and denominator to keep it right. So multiply both top and bottom by square root 5. There will be a square root of 5 on top, and underneath 5 times 5 is going to turn into the square root of 25. Well, the square root of 25 is just 5. So what we've done now is rewrote the fraction where the square root is in the numerator rather than the denominator. And that's called rationalizing the denominator. And so it just will amount to, in these cases, multiplying the square root by itself on both numerator and denominator. And that'll cause it in the denominator to disappear. Now that's what happens in a fraction like that one. However, let's look at this next one where we have 1 over 5 plus the square root of 3. This one's a little bit more complicated because there's more than just a square root in the denominator. In this case, you're still going to multiply top and bottom by something, but in this case, I'm going to multiply by almost the same thing, but with a different sign in the middle. So instead of 5 plus square root 3, I'm going to do 5 minus square root 3. This is referred to as the conjugate in some cases. So when you multiply by the conjugate, top and bottom, well, the top is just 1, so on top you'll have 5 minus the square root 3. On the bottom, however, you're going to have to FOIL these two things together. So when you FOIL these two things, you got the first, 5 times 5 is 25. The outer, which would be negative 5 square roots 3. The inner, which would be plus 5 square roots 3. And then finally the last. Square root 3 would turn into just 3, in this case a negative 3. Okay, well notice the things in the middle here are the same, but they're going to cancel each other out because one's positive, one's negative. And then all that's left is 25 and minus 3, and that turns into 22. And on the bottom and on the top would be 5 minus the square root of 3. So now what we've done is taken care of the denominator so that all that's down there is a number without a square root. And that time it rationalized the denominator.